Hello, Dr. Klein. We hope you're doing well today. This is Reid, Rachel, and Molly, and we will be talking about our group project topic, which is starting and managing an independent restaurant.
So the development of independent restaurants have certainly seen a lot of changes, especially within the last 18 months due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And a big thing with that is labor costs have skyrocketed. There's also been labor shortages. There's been rules on minimum wages and tip credits and rent increases on the building that you're using. And so everything with restaurants and hospitality as a whole have been totally flipped upside down. And it's important to adapt to customers' needs and wants when starting a business so that way you can retain their loyalty and their business to help you succeed. So that's hard in general, but especially during the middle of a pandemic, if you're an independent restaurant, it's hard to know what the customers needs and want in a normal period. So it's just hard to find that balance in between. So next is the advancement of technological management systems. So before 1973, restaurants would use just pen and paper to keep up with reservations, stock, inventory, truck orders. I mean, anything that you could think that would need to be managed. And I mean, pen and paper, that's while that's great, that could be easily lost. So when in 1973, when the first POS system became available for restaurants to use, that was huge because that made being able to manage things go electronically and keep reservations in order, and that one cut out the pen and paper, so it was a lot less easy to lose or it was a lot harder to lose things, and it took the ease off of managers and employees. Instead of having to keep up with 50 pieces of paper, you can just go on whatever electronic device you have and just look up what you need. And using paper for those stated above they could get lost easily and create a lot of confusion. So having technological advancements have given businesses an ease about keeping up with orders, reservations, and cuts out the use of paper. So next is the development of systems and procedures. So the two biggest things that have shaped independent restaurants are cloud-based restaurant software and contactless payment. So contactless payment is very up and coming. It's becoming more popular, and that is where you can take your credit or debit card, tap the screen for say 2-3 seconds, and then transactions completed. You don't have to enter your PIN number, select credit, debit, what have you. Just tap your card on the screen, you're good to go. And cloud-based restaurant software is most beneficial for managers because it allows you to see everything with your restaurant, and you can control it from any device, and it provides um, helping keep operations in order. While it might be costly to use, it ends up being profitable because you don't have to keep constantly reordering paper and pens to keep up with everything. And having it online allows for managers and owners to see, and employees if need be. So it all around just helps keep things in order. So next is retaining employees. Retaining employees is something that every business owner has to deal with, whether you have a shoe store, clothing store, what have you. Retaining employees you just have to deal with, and employees who have been with the company for many years have considerable knowledge of the company's cultures with its products and services, so they kind of know the ins and outs of the restaurant, like when peak season is, slow season, those employees kind of know when that is. And that having new employees can help shadow new having seasoned employees can help shadow new employees and make them feel welcome, and that can kind of ease the process for new employees coming in. And regardless of being a manager and employee, having long-term employees can greatly help the business succeed because they kind of know, again, the flow of the restaurant and supply and demand when it comes to ordering products. Next is purchases and uncertain return on investment. So the biggest thing that comes with a restaurant is the kitchen. And so the kitchen, you have to have necessary equipment, even if it does cost a lot of money. And that can range anywhere from $50,000 to approximately $150,000. And it's hard to know what to buy because you don't know if your business will be successful when you're first starting out or not. You obviously hope so, but it's hard to know whether or not it will be. But you have to assume the best, so you have to make those necessary purchases, and that include anything from paint color to tables to how the menus look to any aesthetic design element to literally anything in the restaurant.
All right, next is the role of a stakeholder. Stakeholders are anyone that has a vested interest in the independent restaurant's operations and successes. Stakeholders can be broken down into two groups, and that includes internal and external stakeholders. Internal stakeholders includes owners, managers, and employees that kind of rely on the company for income and job security. And external stakeholders include customers, local community around where the restaurant is located, partnered businesses, and even shareholders. As shareholders are a type of stakeholder, but not necessarily the other way around. And with some of these stakeholders, particularly businesses, partnerships with the other restaurants and various related food and beverage businesses can quickly raise the amount of stakeholders that are involved in a certain restaurant's view. So restaurant financing is defined as money that is sourced from an outside partner to help start or refurbish a restaurant, because most likely a prospective restaurant owner is not going to have all the funds on or necessary on hand to set up everything. And there exists multiple revenues for that, kind of as a small business administration loans, traditional bank loans, merchant cash advances, where this credit card companies will pay a lump sum towards the restaurant in exchange for a return in percentage of the profits, while a small business administration loan kind of is a organization that pulls from partnered lenders in order to give money to those restaurants. And because of COVID-19, the impacts from it on restaurants have severely limited what is available to independent restaurants and have made many of them look towards the government for assistance. And one organization that has cropped up in response to that has been the Independent Restaurant Coalition, which has been representing and lobbying for independent restaurants and getting a industry-specific COVID Relief Act pushed through.
So, obviously, sustainability is an incredibly important part of our world today, and it's becoming even more increasingly so. And there are three different types of sustainability: economic sustainability, environmental sustainability, and social sustainability. And all three of these are incredibly important when opening and operating an independent restaurant. One of the most important factors you want to think about is where you're sourcing your ingredients. Sourcing locally as well as sourcing from your own backyard or growing your own is a great way to be more environmentally friendly, in the ways that if you're sourcing from a farm that's 5 minutes down the road versus 3 hours away, obviously it's a lot less carbon emissions. It's a lot quicker. You've got fresher ingredients coming in. It's a little bit more budget friendly because you don't have to pay for the shipping and transportation costs. And it also attracts customers because customers like to support their local economy. They want to support those local businesses, and customers also love fresher ingredients. Energy efficient equipment is also a fantastic way to be economically sustainable. As Molly covered, you do have those kind of return on investment factors where, yes, it might be pretty expensive to buy a energy efficient dishwasher, but at the end of the day, when your energy bill is a lot lower over an extended amount of time, you're going to be pretty thankful that you did that. Same thing with things like light bulbs and low flow faucets and toilets. Yes, you might be spending the money initially, but over time, it's going to be a lot better for the environment and a lot better for your wallet. For environmental sustainability, obviously this is the big one. This is the one that we all know about and talk about. As far as starting and managing an independent restaurant goes, a few ways that restaurants are kind of trying to lessen their environmental impact is through reducing waste. Some ways that they do this are recycling, buying more environmentally friendly products, staying away from styrofoam, kind of heading towards those compostable materials, recyclable materials, and also just eliminating waste, whether that's composting or donating your leftover food instead. Those are all great ways to be a little more environmentally sustainable. As discussed, growing food in-house or buying locally is also a fantastic way to kind of lessen your carbon footprint. It leads to more nourished soil. It's more natural, your food's organic, and you know exactly what you're putting into your soil, and you know exactly where your food is coming from. Reducing the amount of conventional meat on the menu can also reduce natural resource usage a great deal. Conventional meat uses insane amounts of water, land, it creates pollution through carbon emissions, and just reduces the nutrients in the soil. And so those plant-based meats are going to have a lot less of an environmental impact than our conventional meats do. As far as social sustainability, this is very big for retaining customers, from baby boomers to Gen X to millennials, pretty much every generation around right now. About 40 to 50% of the ones who were surveyed in the State of Restaurant Sustainability 2018 edition said that they were influenced by a restaurant's environmental impact and where they chose to dine. So someone might look at somewhere that sources locally and say, I would much rather go there than to this Applebee's that buys from, Tyson Nuggets. Also, hiring locally is incredibly important. You want, not only that, you not only want your money to stay within the economy, you want your employees to leave the restaurant and use the market down the street and keep that money circulating rather than leaking into different economies. You also have less gas mileage used because employees are either driving shorter distances to work, or maybe they have the ability to walk to work. You also just have that connection between the employee and the guest, because lots of tourists want to know about what are some things I can do in the town, like what are some other great restaurants, can I go see shows, things like that. And an employee who lives in town and has more of a vested interest in that town is going to be able to relate to the customer a bit more. Some other social sustainability factors and efforts are just community service in general. Just really reaching out to your community kind of gives you just a more well-rounded quality of your business. Diversity in the workplace, that's important for both the employee and the customer. You want to see people who look like you and also see people who look different from you. You want it to be just a melting pot of diversity in the workplace. Also, human rights and civil rights efforts are incredibly important. You want to make sure that both your employees and your customers feel comfortable and included in the business that you've started. And so those are very important for being a socially sustainable business. Connections between sustainability and tourism. So tourism kind of does a number on the environment. It produces a lot of greenhouse gases in traveling. A lot of resources are used, a lot of infrastructure is built on land and destroys animal habitats. But despite all these harmful effects, tourism actually does a great deal for the environment as well, in a more positive way. I think that without tourism, a lot of, our national parks, the Blue Ridge Parkway, a lot of those areas would not be as well sustained, because I hate to say it, but our world kind of functions through money. And if tourism dollars weren't going into those places, then they wouldn't have as much of a need to kind of fix them up and keep them going for the future generations. And one thing that we have talked about in class recently is the COP26 conference, which is the biggest climate change conference that has ever happened in the world. So it's pretty important. And one of the key asks for this conference is to sustain nature and to kind of help those less fortunate countries who don't have those resources to be sustainable, and to just kind of lend a helping hand to places like islands who just don't have those resources to be more environmentally friendly. I thought that was really important in connection with tourism, because without those islands and without, places that have maybe less money but have gorgeous beaches and retain a lot of their money from tourist dollars, they need that sustainability in order to survive. And so this is important not only for our planet, but also for these communities that need those tourist dollars and need their environment to stay beautiful and stay a place that people want to go in order to, keep thriving. So trends for the tourism industry. Some of the trends that we're seeing that are coming in right now, as well as in the future, are off-premises dining. So that's just, takeout food, picking up from the restaurant, curbside, in person, and taking it either to your home or somewhere else. Blended meals, where you take something from a restaurant, whether it's a meat or produce, and then you pair it with ingredients from home as well and create your own meal. Meal kits, as well as alcoholic beverages to go, are also becoming a lot more popular, especially just in the midst of the global pandemic. Having that less contactless and more at-home setting has been very popular. Many customers have also decided to just stay at home in general, whether it's blended meals, meal kits, alcohol to go. You're kind of seeing a trend of not wanting to be as in person and kind of wanting that safety of being in your own home and away from others.
So in conclusion, the development of various technologies such as the point of sale systems or contactless payments have altered how the restaurant industry carries out routine operations and kind of sped it up. Consumers are becoming a lot more aware of responsibilities and processes that restaurants can do to contribute, and that they also are already doing, whether that's contributing bad or good, towards social, economic, and environmental sustainability, and how to change some of that. And the restaurant industry is working towards improving both the dining experience since the pandemic and the sustainability of those restaurants themselves.
Wonderful. And here are our works cited pages. All right. Thank you so much for listening, Dr. Klein, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.